Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1032B, and today's date is July 26, 2016, and the title of the episode is, U.S. will now use sanctions against those countries using cyber attacks. Next step, war. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, at this point, we realize that the U.S. wants war and wants war bad. And we understand that the United States has been provoking many different countries around the globe, Russia, China, North Korea, and they're going to continually do this. And we're seeing that John Kerry is out there, and he is warning North Korea of real consequences if North Korea continues with its nuclear missile tests. Now, the question is, what are the real consequences? What is the United States prepared to do? And we know what the real consequences are going to be. Now, some might say it's sanctions, but we can see that they really want war instead. And this is what we need to watch here. Now, the U.S. with Korea, South Korea, they're going to be deploying new Patriot missile system next year. Now, they have the THAAD system that they put in place. They're going to deploy a new PAC-3 missiles with interceptors, and they are putting them there in response to North Korea's nuclear missile threats. So we can see they're continually provoking North Korea. They want North Korea to do something, and they're going to continually put missile systems surrounding North Korea, pointing to China and Russia. Now, we see out in Ukraine things are heating up, and the United States right now, they are prepared to provide supplementary training to Ukrainian forces in addition to the existing extensive training programs they're already doing. Now, when we look at this, we can see right now that the U.S. sees that the Ukrainian troops needs additional training, because what the Kiev troops have been doing is they've been probing the front line, they've been bombing certain areas, and many times the southeastern people have pushed them back. So the U.S. has stepped in and said, okay, we haven't trained them well enough, we need to train them some more. And this is why this program is being implemented at this point. And what we're also seeing in Ukraine is that conditions are actually set up for a military coup. Now, if you really think about it, when we look at Ukraine right now, we see tariffs, taxes, they're growing. We see that 71% of Ukrainian residents consider themselves impoverished. We see the living standards, well, they're absolutely awful at this point. Most Ukrainians are terrified about their future. People do not know what problems they'll have to deal with when winter comes. The constitutional and legal model of the state, well, that's been destroyed. In Ukraine, it's done. And they're really set up to have some type of coup. Could be a military coup, could be a people coup. We don't know at this point, but this is something that we need to watch. We see out in Turkey, Turkey is giving us the indicators, Russia is giving us the indicators that they might be moving closer together. And we can see the U.S., NATO, they are in trouble. We see that the Turkish Deputy Prime Minister wants to get closer with Russia, and they want to exceed pre-crisis ties. They want to restart the natural gas stream pipeline. We also see that they might be doing away with the food embargo. And these are definite indicators that they're moving in this direction. Now, a really great indicator showing us that the U.S. and NATO have problems in Turkey at this point. Now, does this mean that Erdogan is not taking and receiving more power by purging all of these people? No. It just shows you that the US and NATO might have lost their grip on controlling him. And this is actually very dangerous, because right now the US is saying that the people in Turkey, the families of staff members, they can leave the country at will. So the US is saying, if you feel that you no longer need to be here and you would like to leave, the US will allow this. And this shows us that the US and NATO, they are losing control of Erdogan, losing control of Turkey, losing control of a strategic location. Now, the US is trying to push Russia to get rid of Assad any way they possibly can. And the United States called on the United Nations to formulate a proposal for a political transition in Syria. The United States emphasized the need to restore compliance with the terms of the cessation hostilities, particularly in Aleppo. And as we know, the Syrian armed forces, we know the Russian forces, they have been pushing quite hard in Aleppo to get the Islamic State out of the region, to get al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, the moderate rebels. And the United States right now they're doing whatever they possibly can to try to remove Assad, to have some type of transition, political transition in Syria. So now they're going to the United Nations. But once again, Russia's point of view is that Assad is controlled by his people. If his people decide they no longer want him as a president, they can have him removed. If they want him as a president, he will then stay. But of course, the United States does not like this. So they're going to go to the UN. They're going to try to push some type of resolution there to have the UN say, listen, we want Assad removed from power. Now, John Kerry is saying they're getting closer and closer to a deal, and we might have something by August. We always hear this August date come up. So we're going to have to watch this situation very closely. We are getting closer and closer to that August timeline. And each day we'll report on what we are seeing, what we're hearing, and what information comes out from the Middle East. Now, the U.S. did something very, very interesting today. That the United States now will use sanctions against those behind cyber attacks that target transportation systems or the power grid. Now, we've been talking about this for quite a while. And when I talk about getting prepared, I'm talking about getting prepared. Because as we know, the main event, most likely, is going to shut down the power grid. Now, not throughout the whole country. That would be ridiculous. No one would be able to hear the propaganda from the government. They will shut it down just like they did in 2003 on the East Coast. I believe that was a test. I was there during that period in Manhattan. And I think what they're doing is they're going to have sections go out. But they still want people to hear and understand what is going on. This will also be followed up by physical attacks. So we can see already they're going down this path. Now, they're doing this and they're citing Russia and China as increasingly assertive and sophisticated in their attacks. So they said the sanctions will be used when the conditions are right and when actions will further U.S. policy. They said, to put it bluntly, we are in the midst of a revolution of the cyber threat, and one that is growing more persistent, more diverse, more frequent, and more dangerous every day. And this is coming from the White House spokesman. So the directive defines a significant cyber incident as one likely to harm national security, economic interests, foreign relations, public confidence, health safety, and civil liberties. Now, when we look at everything that's going on, we can see things are rapidly accelerating right now. We understand there were terrorist attacks in Germany, 2 of them, a shooting, a bombing. We see there was something in France with a priest, part of the Islamic State. Now we know this is all propaganda, and like we said, this is going to accelerate as time goes on. And this is exactly what we're seeing. And of course, this is all part of their plan. They want people to understand. They want people to be in fear. They want all of this happening at the same time. It's complete chaos. This is exactly what they want. Now, while we're seeing all of this, Obama comes out and he says the U.S. elections, well, they might be swayed by Russia. They might try to influence the U.S. presidential elections because, of course, they're coming out today saying that Russia hacked the DNC emails. They have all the emails, and they might use all of this to influence the elections. And if the U.S. government believes this is happening, they might use this to say, we need to postpone right now because we have another country trying to influence what's going on here. I'm going to declare, and this is coming from Obama, a state of emergency. That Russia is trying to manipulate presidential elections in the United States. So we can see how the government can use terror events. They can use Russia influencing the elections. And we can see how they would use this to further their agenda. And this is something that we need to watch and see how this all plays out. Now, once again, this doesn't mean this is going to happen. But it's strange how they're continually coming out with a little bit of information at a time as we get closer and closer to the elections, as the economy continually falls apart. We're hearing more of this type of information. They're creating these laws that say, hey, if someone cyber attacks, it's an act of war. If someone cyber attacks, we can sanction. And it seems at this point they're getting prepared and ready, and they're moving faster and faster because we're coming to the point where the economy is breaking down. It's collapsing. And it looks like they're getting prepared to do something to cover up the entire collapse. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.